Now, there are written constitutions, unwritten constitutions. And as we discussed earlier, Indian Constitution is the largest constitution. And now, let us look into the features of our constitution, major features. Why, how it is different from, what is the unique features of Indian Constitution. Now, our Constitution includes 395, today it is the bulkiest, 395 articles, 12 schedules, and since independence, it has underwent 104 amendments as on January 2020. Now, we are looking at the characteristics or salient features, important aspects of our Constitution. Told you, it includes 395 articles. Articles means where clause by clause, everything, the powers of the government, powers of the different organs of the government. I told you different organs are, as we discussed earlier, you remember, it is legislature, the law making body, executive, the law implementing body, and judiciary, which is looking at how the laws are made, is it in agreement or against the constitutional provisions, how it is implemented, the spirit of law. That is, when you make law, the most important thing is the spirit of law has to be understood by the department, especially the executive department, which execute the law. And judiciary looks into all this. Now, the most important thing I told you is the bulkiest constitution, the large constitution, huge constitution, which has 395 articles, 12 schedules, and from independence, 104 amendments. Amendments are, as we discussed earlier, there are in the day-to-day administration, new things, new events, new reasons, new needs will arise. Therefore, the basic feature will not be amended, but there will be, Parliament makes certain amendments to suit the situation, to make fresh, these amendments are fresh laws. For example, 42nd Amendment of the Indian Constitution, which added the word secular to our preamble of the Constitution. Secular. We will discuss it earlier. Now, the second important aspect is, it is dual polity. This we have discussed earlier. You know what is dual polity? Remember what is dual polity? Dual polity. Two levels of administration. Dual polity. Two levels, that is union government and state governments. We have got a union government. We discussed earlier, I hope you remember, we said under normal times, India will be a federation. That is, there are both federal features and unitary features embodied in the Constitution. Depending upon the situation, need of our, we have got adaptability. The Constitution has got adaptability. That is, normal times we will work as federation, wherein union government will function in its sphere of activity. State governments will also look into their sphere of activity. Now both will go hand in hand together in harmony and peace. Now, when there is an emergency situation, as per the constitution, state government, all authorities, all powers enjoyed by the state government will be taken back by the union government. Everything will go to union government, and state government will not function. State government will function only as per the directions given by the center, by the union. This is the second feature. And we have got a federal constitution, and another most important thing is ours is parliamentary system. When we speak of parliamentary system, now in democracies there are only two systems functioning in the world. Which are the two systems? They are, America. America follows presidential system. India follows parliamentary system. Parliamentary system. Now, ours is a parliamentary system of government, and this government is also known as responsible government. Responsible government. I don't know whether you remember, we have discussed in the previous class how is the responsibility transferred from the administration to the people. Let's see. I told you why this is called responsible means answerable, accountable. Now in the modern times, or in many of the offices or establishments, see, there is no accountability of the people. People are not answerable. Accountability means you have to answer for what you do and what you don't do. How you do, how you don't do. I don't know whether we are answerable to our parents, we are answerable to our teachers, we are answerable to maybe the law and order situation, we are answerable to the state. So, now I would like to take you back to John F. Kennedy, the words of John F. Kennedy. He said, "Ask not what the nation has done for you, but ask what you have done for the nation." This was maybe, I don't know, at times I am a critic also. This is the failure which happened in the beginning of the making of our constitution. I'm sorry to say that, because why I said is, we have got fundamental rights, efforts we call fundamental rights embodied in the constitution. But only through the 42nd amendment, we have embodied fundamental duties. So this is why I said so. So rights are, now it is also said, rights and duties are two sides of the same coin. Rights and duties are two sides of the same coin. You take a coin and see, there are two sides. Only if you smudge one side, the coin will not be valid. The coin is valid only when we have both these sides good. Now, it is also said, rights without duties are men without shadows. See, when we walk, we will find shadow. Everywhere there are shadows. There are a number of shadows depending upon the rays of light focusing. Men without shadows, they exist in fairy tales. You know what fairy tales are. Now, like, fundamental rights were embodied in the constitution in the beginning, but there were no fundamental duties. That is where our citizens became maybe a bit lazy. We were all used to the monarchy system. The king orders and the subjects obeys. Order and obey. Now in a democracy, parliamentary system of government, responsible government, we have to be very proactive. It is also said, eternal vigilance is the price of democracy. So in a democracy, everybody, you and me, we have to be vigilant. We have to be alive. Do not sleep. Open your eyes, open your ears and see what is happening around you. And we have to be proactive, contribute something to the country, like what Kennedy said, Ask not what you have done for, ask not what the country has done for you, but ask what you have done for the country. Okay, now going back to responsible government, the responsibility flows from the ministers to the elected representatives of the legislature and through them to the electorates, the constituency, ഒരു മണ്ഡലം, to the people. So, ഈ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ അവർ ഒക്കെ നിങ്ങൾ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടാവും ഈ അസംബ്ലിയിലും പാർലമെൻറ്റിലും. That is, every minister is answerable to the actions of his department. He is responsible. That's why it's called responsible government. We have got a responsible government, parliamentary system, and I told you we have got fundamental rights, and also there is something called directive principles of state policy. Directive principles of state policy. This is also known as DPSP. Now, there are a lot of discussion going on about fundamental rights and directive principles. Fundamental rights are the rights given to citizens to enjoy, to make your life fruitful, to make a worthy living. We will look into the fundamental rights in detail. We had 7 fundamental rights. Now we have only 6 fundamental rights. The 7th right was right to property. Right to property was removed from the constitution. It's a constitutional right. It's no more a fundamental right. Whereas directive principles of state policy are mandates, directions given to every government, future government. This limits, this gives lot of fundamental rights, limits the government, whereas directive principles of state policy enhances the horizon of the governments. It says that every ours is a welfare state. India is a welfare state. Kshema Rashtam. Welfare state means a state which takes care or provide for every citizens the minimum basic necessities. When you say about minimum basic necessities, what are the minimum basic necessities? In Hindi में बोलेंगे रोटी कपड़ा और मकान. रोटी कपड़ा और मकान. We need our food, we need a place to stay, we need our dress to make. But this concept has changed. This, of course, these are the primary basic needs. But then we have need for education, we have need for leisure, we have need for entertainments, we have need for progress, development will be part of our country. So, going back, the directive principles of state policy guides, tells the government which are the areas wherein you have to provide for the people. And another important feature of our constitution is secularism. Secularism. Earlier, state and religion was almost the same. Like you remember the history, Louis XIV said, "I am the state." And in the earlier times, whatever kings told was also the religion. Or kings were influenced by the religious people, vice versa it was there. Now see, secularism says, the idea of secularism was added in the preamble in the 42nd Amendment of the Indian Constitution. Now the preamble says, India is a sovereign, secular, socialist, democratic republic. So now the word secular means state does not recognize, state does not own, state does not support any particular religion. All religions are equal. Especially like a country like India. You know, there are how many religions? There are a number of religions, like Christianity came from outside, Islam came from outside. There are Jainism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, which originated in India. Now there are n number of religions, and we were a community where we had unity in diversity, we lived in peace, we lived in very harmonious situation. Now secular says everybody, even be it minority or majority or anybody, has the freedom to profess, practice any religion. You can believe in a religion, you can practice in a religion, you can propagate in a religion, profess, practice and propagate in a religion. And there shall be no discrimination on the basis of religion. On the basis of religion, you don't have to pay an extra tax if you have a religious institution. Most religious institutions are exempted from even taxes. That is, secularism is considering all religion equally. Now, another important feature of our constitution is we have got an independent judiciary. That is, independent judiciary is the watchdog. Judiciary is the watchdog. We have three departments of the government: legislature, executive and judiciary. And judiciary has to be independent. Independent means independent of the legislature, independent of the executive as well. How the independence is maintained? We'll see. Executive appoints, means president appoints the judges. They can be removed only by legislature if both the houses, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, passes a resolution to that effect with 2/3 majority on their incapacity or misbehavior. Two things: if a judge is incapacitated or he is not able to manage his post, manage his job, that is, if Lok Sabha prefers a charge, Rajya Sabha investigates, and if both the houses passes, it's very difficult. Usually it doesn't happen. Before that they will resign and go. Now, appointment of the judges are done by the executive, and they are removed by only an order passed by both the houses of parliament. That's why their independence is maintained. They are not afraid of anybody. They are not administered by anybody. They are not answerable to anybody. They can independently work. That's very important. Now, another most important thing of our system is bicameral system. Earlier we have discussed what it is. Bicameral system of legislature. There are two chambers. Since we have discussed earlier, I am going in bus. Two chambers, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, we have two chambers. And there is another very important feature of Indian Constitution is emergency powers. I don't know whether you are aware of emergency in India, emergency powers. When I did my graduation, was the emergency 1977 declared by Mrs. Gandhi, and I can say that emergency was a good condition for ordinary people, normal people. People were not violating, but then there are excesses of the police department and etc. And you also would have heard about Rajan, engineering student in Calicut, engineering student during an emergency. The case is like this: a group of students attacked, they say Naxalites, attacked police station, and this so-called Rajan, whoever it is, one policeman shouted and he just covered his mouth, his palm, and the policeman and all others ran off and they said, Raja, Raja, Odiko. This is what we understand. And they have combed the entire area and arrested all people whose name was Rajan. And this particular Rajan, whose father was Professor Ishwara Warrier, he was a professor, and Rajan was taken and never his body was, not even his dead body was seen. That means he died under police custody and he was, he just vanished. Now, going back, one incident of emergency I told. Emergency powers means there are three types of emergencies. National emergency, as per Article 352. Indian Constitution, Article 352 gives the powers and provisions of national emergency. National emergency means if the country is attacked during a war or during an internal calamity which the government is not able to manage, then emergency. During emergency, fundamental rights will be taken back. You and me cannot enjoy any right at all. We will not have any fundamental rights during an emergency. And also, state administration will not function. Only the central administration functions under the leadership of the President, Prime Minister plus Cabinet. This will be the administration. Who? President of India, Prime Minister and Cabinet. All other levels and structure of administration will be void during the period. They will not have any effect at all. They will administer whatever is told or directed from the above, from the center. Now, state emergency as per 356. State level emergency, which is also known as President's rule. President Bharanam. President's rule. That is, what happens is, we said there is a central government and a state governments, and when the central state government fails in maintaining law and order, in giving a peaceful administration, what happens? President takes over. Governor recommends the president. Governor recommends the president. President takes over, and it is called President's rule. Then also there is something called financial emergency. Financial emergency as per Article 360. What is financial emergency? You remember, I don't know whether you remember about the demonetization policy. Over like India got independence, at midnight, the announcement came, all our highest denominations will not be legal tender. From tomorrow, you cannot make use of your 500 or 1000 rupee notes which we had in our hands. Likewise, if there is an emergency financial situation, is also an emergency. There is three types of emergency. These are the emergency powers well embodied in the Constitution, and India will function as a unitary system during an emergency. There are a few more things. Three-tier government. Few more very important aspects of the Constitution, that is three-tier government. All of you would be familiar with traveling in the train. Okay, there are two-tier and three-tier. Three-tier means you would have seen 3 levels of beds. Likewise, 3 levels of government. Central government, three-tier system. Central, state, central government, state government, and LSG. You would have seen number of vehicles running with a board, red board. LSG. What's LSG? Local self-government. Panchayati Raj. Local self-government was introduced by the 73rd Amendment and 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Indian Constitution. This is to make democracy more, more real, to make democracy real. I will add one more thing with this. 3-tier. See, we had a planning commission. We had planning commission. What is the new name of planning commission? What is the new name? Niti Ayog. Niti Ayog. After Janata Party came into power under our present Prime Minister Modi ji, planning commission, which was set up in 1947, after 1947 by Jawaharlal Nehru, there is no more planning commission, and the place of planning commission is taken by Niti Ayog. Now, why I said this is, our administration and planning was top-down approach. See, there is top-down approach. Top-down. That is, earlier planning commission, they decide and they direct to the lower levels. Now, what happens is, citizens were passive participants. Participation, this is lot to talk about participation, active participation, passive participation, levels of participation, all that is there. Now the present thing is bottom-up approach. Top-down, instead of top-down it is bottom-up approach. That is, every panchayat is divided into wards. Every ward there is a ward sabha, and each ward sabha can plan, execute, administer whatever development needs are for that particular plan. So therefore, every person is given an opportunity to participate in the day-to-day administration. That is the use of the LSD 3-tier government. And two more things, we have got adult franchise. This is also embodied in the adult franchise is പ്രായപൂർത്തി വോട്ടവകാശം നമ്മൾ പറയും, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അഡൽട്ട് സഫ്രേജ്, അഡൽട്ട് ഫ്രാഞ്ചൈസ്. Every citizen who has attained the age of 18 has the power to vote. That is, to participate is a political right, to participate in the political activity, to vote. And another most important thing is judicial review. There is one more thing, most important aspect of the constitution. Judicial review. Judicial review is, I'll also just tell you about judicial review, and we will conclude this session on the salient features of Indian Constitution. This is another important aspect of our Constitution, judicial review. Judicial review is, earlier I said there are 6 fundamental rights, and Supreme Court is the custodian or guardian of our fundamental rights of citizens. If a fundamental right is violated, we can approach Supreme Court and get remedy. That's why called fundamental rights are justiciable rights. What? Justiciable rights. A justiciable right is a right if it is violated by an individual, organization, state, or whoever it is. If it is violated, the aggrieved person can approach Supreme Court for judicial review and see justice is done to that particular person. So these are the very important basic features of Indian Constitution, which we have borrowed from all over the country, which we have borrowed from different constitutions, from different experiences, from different learnings, and we have got the best from different elements, and we have got a best constitution for our country.